All right, after the Padres lost Game 5 to the Dodgers, Jurickson Profar, he was speaking to the media, and part of his comments were about him being a free agent, but also his desire to stay with this team here in San Diego. Him telling AJ Cassavell of MLB.com, "I'm a free agent now." Profar said amid the sting of the Padres' exit in the NLDS, "But I want to be here. This team, I think they have all the things to win a World Series. Mike Shildt built a beautiful thing here. Hopefully, I'm part of it." And then I believe another quote was, "But I mean, it's free agency, so the last couple of years has showed him that." So him, remember, after his first go around with the Padres, goes into free agency. I believe he declined the player option, right? Then he ends up going to the Rockies. He thought that maybe he could get, or at least Boris did, and he just followed Boris's guidance, I guess, or advice. Seemed like he thought he was going to get 3 years, maybe 10 mil, 15 mil a year coming off of what would that would have been 2022, off the 2022 season and him playing left field. He actually, remember, he had I thought, a pretty good defensive season. And then he was, I think, at the top of the order, right, for 2022 for the Padres. Yeah, leading off, I believe. So that happens. And then he loses in free agency, essentially, because he goes to the Rockies on a 1-year deal. He didn't sign till after the World Baseball Classic. I remember him playing in the WBC without a team. And I was just wondering, okay, where is he going to go? Goes to the Rockies. He ends up not being with the Rockies at the end of the season. He ends up being with the Padres in 2023. Ends up performing pretty well in that limited time. And it's like, well, bringing back Profar, I didn't know if it was going to be for $1 million at the time, but bringing him back, it's like, yeah, do it. Seems like a good fit. Not going to have a ton of interest, I wouldn't think, from teams, especially in a starting role. And by the way, the Padres, that contract was not in a starting role for $1 million. You don't sign a veteran free agent like that, $1 million, and say, like, yeah, we're signing you for a starter deal here. We're giving you $1 million. No, it's going to be more than that. $1 million is hey, yeah, you're going to be on the roster, but you're going to fill in wherever it's best. You're going to be a team guy, utility guy, multiple positions, and we'll see what happens. But he ends up starting in left field. You know, they don't go sign Tommy Pham or someone else, and he ends up being the starting left fielder in for the National League in the All-Star game. And he was hitting third for the Padres in their biggest games of the season. And it's like, wow, talk about best contract. There was a lot of talk, obviously, about Teoscar Hernandez with the Dodgers and the 1 year for him. They were paying him like over $20 million for that 1 year, I think. They were paying Profar $1 million. That's nothing in Major League Baseball. Absolutely nothing. That's the minimum salary is a few $100,000 less than that, right? So now, obviously, he's not going to get $1 million in this next contract. He's a free agent. So what is that contract going to look like? I was reading, I think it was in The Athletic, or maybe it was Kevin Acee in the Union Tribune. Maybe it's going to have to be 3 years, $10+ million. Okay. I think that's, coming off of the year that he just had, yeah, that makes sense. But for the Padres, does that make sense for them? I think Profar has the leverage here. I mean, it's like Mike Shildt with his possible extension, which I believe should happen, by the way, this offseason. Get that done. They got the leverage because 2023 happened and they weren't in the roles that they were in for 2024. And how much positive things came from them being in their roles for the Padres this season. Huge, right? Profar was so huge for this Padres team. Mike Shildt, so huge. He has 1 more year left on his deal. It was a 2-year deal. And so Profar can sit there and say, well, what are you going to do if I'm gone? Who's going to be in left field? And what would the Padres' answer be? Seriously, a free agent? And how much would they cost over Jurickson Profar? And are they going to fit into the clubhouse as good as Jurickson? The answer is no, because no one fits better, it seems like, right? Fan favorite. I know the front office can't really think about that, but clubhouse favorite, that plays into it. And he produces. I know in the postseason, and he admitted this himself, he should have been better at the plate, but we could say the same thing about a lot of other guys. And they have contracts here. and they still helped the Padres get to where they got to. To me, he still brought it pretty good defensively there in left field. And he's one of those guys that wants to win, that hates losing, wanted to win for San Diego. I have a quote here from that article from AJ Cassavell, which I recommend you go reading. I feel terrible that we let those people down. Then later says, I want to win a World Series for San Diego. So he wants to be here. And I know pretty much all Padres fans want Jurickson Profar to be here. It's just the question of how long of a contract. I don't know if Profar's still with Boris, probably. How long does that contract need to be? How much money per year or total does that contract need to be? Does Jurickson Profar want to do what he did in 2023 or going into that year and just go for the best contract? Or if the Padres still give him a respectable offer, is he more willing to take that because he wants to get to a place where he never has been, which is win a World Series title, right? What does he value? Does he value being in a place that he knows that he is loved and he fits in perfectly and he's a huge piece to that team? Or does he want to go somewhere else where who knows how he would fit with that team? Who knows what his role would be with that team? But I think if you're the Padres, you're taking Jurickson Profar as your starting left fielder going into next year. You'll take the same outfield. You'll just run it right back with that same outfield. I think there's questions in the infield, pitching, right? But with the outfield, I mean, Profar's the starting left fielder. So Profar knows that. But what about in other spots? And there's other, I mean, we've seen this where guys get a contract, they get more money with the team that's not in a spot to win. And maybe that was best for their family, so they're going to say they don't regret that decision. But at the same time, you want to win. Your career doesn't last forever, so you want to win. And the Padres are a place that you can win. I know it didn't go the way we planned there, especially, those last 24 innings not scoring any runs. But this team was special, and it can continue to be special next year. And I think Jurickson Profar can be a really good piece for that. All right, and then one last thing I wanted to say here before I end this video. I should have brought it up earlier, but it just popped into my head. Because we're talking about this contract, how much could this end up being? I mentioned maybe 3 years, 10+ mil per year. Well, then I go to Fangraphs and see, okay, how much was he worth in dollars, their dollar metric, this year? So last year, it was negative 12.5 mil. This year, it was 34.4 mil. 2022, by the way, 19.4. And we saw the contract that he got going into 2023. Obviously, it did not replicate what he was worth in 2022. So 2024, I'm not saying this coming off season he's going to get 30 million a year. That's not going to happen. It's probably going to be that total, or it could be that in total. But my point in bringing this up is he was very valuable to this team. He can help other teams in baseball. It just feels like it's one of those things I kind of compare it to like Kike Hernandez, or Justin Turner maybe with the Dodgers when he was there. It just fits, right? They fit with that team. They belong on that team. And they go somewhere else, and it just doesn't feel right, right? If Profar were to go to another team, it just wouldn't feel right. And he probably wouldn't feel right, to be quite honest, with that other team. I'm obviously not in there. I'm not with that. I'm not him. But it would just feel weird, right? So he belongs with the Padres. And as long as they don't go lowballing him, right? Don't disrespect him, because we know he doesn't forget about those things, right? We saw it this year when he is disrespected. And I respect those people, by the way, that, when they're disrespected, they have that chip on their shoulder, right? So just don't disrespect him. Don't lowball him. Obviously, it's a business, but this is a guy that can help your business, if that makes sense. So I do feel like if the Padres could give him 3 years for 30 mil, I think that is respectable. Some may say that's too much. And there's not a ton of money, to be quite honest, that's coming off the books for the Padres, right? because I think Haas is one more year still on the books. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. But just looking at their payroll, obviously Manny's here, Tatis is here, Bogey's here, Darvish is here, Musgrove's here, Crony's here, Suarez is here. Kim, that could be what, $6 million coming off? Because if he was $8 million for that player option that he has, or mutual option, I think. If he doesn't take it, it's a $2 million buyout. So you still have to subtract the two there. So let's say it's $6 million that frees up. And for this coming season, you tack on $4 million for that for Profar. Is that big of a deal for the Padres when they just had the postseason revenue, which is a lot of money that comes in that they didn't have in 2023, right? Now there's guys like Luis Ariz, who I think is valuable to this Padres team, but he is expected to make, I think, 13 mil in his final year before free agency. The Padres were not paying that this year for Luis Ariz. So do they end up trading him? Do they end up trading someone that we don't expect and that allows them to bring Profar back? I don't want to sit here and say that they can't bring Profar back because I think they can even without dealing Luis Ariz. They got a lot of money, I assume, this year from attendance, from merchandise, from postseason. So I know the TV deal was not what it was, but again, it just feels like this is one of those deals that you got to get done. You got to get it done because he wants to be here. And this isn't a $300 million contract that we're talking about here. This is something that is doable for the San Diego Padres.